Hotep World, this your brother Matthew Daniels, aka M. Pooh, aka the Chosen Few, aka the real bookworm. I'm not a bookworm, I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And as always, world, may your name live on forever and may your memory never die. Hotep, the curse of the president. Indian curses, dead presidents, and ominous omens for the next president in this 2020 election. Now, the 9th president of the United States was a man named William Henry Harrison, okay? And he was elected to office in 1840. Now, William Harrison was the first U.S. president to actually die in office. You may not have known this history, but the real bookworm is going to bring you the real information. So he was the first president to actually die in office. Now, did you know that his death was not accidental? His death was actually prophesied, right, by an Indian, right? And his death was the result of a curse that resulted in the death of several presidents after him. And this prophecy and this curse is very, very significant to our next president who is going to win the 2020 election. I'm going to be coming out of a book called The Haunting of the President, right? The Haunting of the President. Now let's take a look at this curse. Let's see who made the curse. Let's see who made the prophecy. And let's see how these presidents died. And let's see why it's important or why it's relevant to the 2020 election. Okay? I'm going into chapter 3. This section of it is known as Tippecanoe and Tyler 2. Now listen to this, man. This is wild. If you don't believe in curses, if you don't believe in prophecies, you probably will by the end of this video. It says, William Henry Harrison's campaign slogan reminded potential voters that he had been a popular war hero years earlier and sought to turn that popularity into political victory. As Harrison stumped across the nation, his Whig Party catchphrase, Tippecanoe and Tyler 2, attracted, let me start that sentence over. As Harrison stomped across the nation, his Whig Party catchphrase attracted enormous attention, became widely popular throughout the country, and ultimately proved to be an immeasurable help to Harrison in his presidential bid. Tippecanoe in the Indian Territory in 1811 was the site of a fierce battle between the Americans and Shawnee Indians, whose leader was the astute and charismatic chief Tecumseh. Harrison, then territorial governor, led American forces in repelling the Shawnee, forcing them off land Harrison wanted for new settlements. Tensions between white men and Indians over the ownership of lands, long strained, had worsened as Indians increasingly found their territories encroached upon by white settlers. Angry and frustrated at Harrison's encroachments upon tribal lands, Tecumseh issued a warning to Harrison in 1810 that the Indians were determined to make a stand where they were. To mount a united defense against the white men, he issued a call for a Western Confederation of Indians, both as a military force and a political front to deal with the U.S. government. But it was not to be. The loss at the Battle of Tippecanoe was particularly bitter and shattered Tecumseh's plan for the Confederation, which died with him in 1813. Tecumseh, one of the most famous of all American Indian leaders, and Harrison, a popular state politician, had become bitter enemies by the time the Battle of Tippecanoe was fought. For Harrison, a victory against the Shawnee was simply good politics, and he saw Tecumseh as a particularly good foil against whom he could vindicate his policies, not just by a defeat, but by whipping out the Shawnee war parties completely and then inflating the body count again for political reasons. At the time, and through much of American history, many Americans considered Harrison a hero for defeating what could have been a powerful tribal confederation led by the Shawnee. But from the Indians' perspective, Tippecanoe was no loss because the American losses exceeded those of the Shawnee. However, because the Americans had greater numbers of soldiers, they were able to drive the Shawnee off the field of battle and humiliate Tecumseh, destroying the Indian settlement at Tippecanoe, also called Prophetstown, in the process. By destroying Tecumseh's military prestige and reputation, Harrison all but ended the western migration of Indians in America. For Harrison, the victory became a stepping stone to an ambitious political career, which he exploited as much as he could after he became known as the hero of Tippecanoe. Tecumseh's younger brother, Tenskwatawa, widely known among the Shawnee as the Prophet, was a religious leader and medicine man possessed with a remarkable gift for prophecy. His paranormal abilities intensified after he experienced a glimpse of a beautiful and peaceful heaven, the spirit world, following a serious bout of illness during an epidemic when he sunk into what doctors might today call a delirium, but which was probably a near-death event. The emotionally overwhelming out-of-body experience, which enabled him to reach a transcendental state, transformed him into a holy man. Reacting to the encroachment of Indian lands by the Americans, Tenskwatawa admonished his followers to avoid contact with the white man and pronounced Americans the children of the evil spirit. William Henry Harrison, however, branded Tenskwatawa an impostor and demanded that if he was a genuine prophet, to prove so. If he is really a prophet, ask of him to cause the sun to stand still, the moon to alter its course, the rivers to cease to flow, or the dead to rise from their graves. If he does these things, you may then believe that he has been sent from God. To Harrison's jargon, Tenskwatawa proved ready for the challenge when he announced his powers would darken the midday sun. To the absolute horror of his superstitious tribesmen, he then accurately, if inexplicably, predicted a solar eclipse and claimed he had darkened the sun. He followed one amazing prediction with another when on December 16, 1811, after pronouncing an angry threat to make the ground shake, the most severe earthquake ever to strike the United States hit with such tremendous force over an immense Midwestern region that the Mississippi and Ohio rivers flowed backwards. Entire villages and farms vanished, and the skies darkened for 2 full days as the result of dust from collapsing homes and trees. Casualties likely numbered in the thousands. Now, Tenskwatawa was taken seriously by his enemies. Tenskwatawa's best known and most enduring prophecy was his infamous presidential curse. Incensed by the defeat at Tippecanoe, Tenskwatawa invoked a curse on his archenemy, William Henry Harrison, and declared that the U.S. president elected every 20 years would die in office. Harrison will not win this year to be the great chief, but he may win next year. If he does, he will not finish his term. He will die in office, Tenskwatawa proclaimed. No president has ever died in office, a visitor pointed out to the prophet. But Harrison will die, I tell you, Tenskwatawa insisted. And when he dies, you will remember my brother Tecumseh's death, and after him every great chief chosen every 20 years thereafter will die. And when each one dies, let everyone remember the debt of our people. Despite the prophet's ominous forewarning, Harrison ignored the threat, and when it came time to run for president, he eagerly embraced the popular campaign slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, which ultimately helped propel him to the White House in 1840. Harrison, who handedly won the election, may have physically sensed his fate when he said goodbye to friends and neighbors in Cincinnati, Ohio on January 26, 1841. This may be the last time I have the pleasure of speaking to you on earth or seeing you. I will bid you farewell. If forever, fare thee well, he told them. Harrison's words would quickly prove precedent. Inauguration Day, March 4th, 1841, dawned cold, windy, and rainy in Washington, D.C. Harrison had made the grueling journey to the nation's capital from Ohio by stagecoach, boat, and train, and along the route stopped frequently to meet the throngs gathered to see and hear their new president. He arrived in Washington visibly tired and weak, but despite the ordeal of his trip, he gallantly rode with neither hat nor coat to his inauguration on the white horse, ignoring what was to be his peril, the foul and blusterous weather. After taking the oath of office, Harrison delivered the longest inaugural address in American presidential history, which ran an hour and 45 minutes. Later that bone-chilling day, Harrison was drenched by a heavy rainfall and soon after complained of chills and fatigue. It was obvious the new president had caught a severe cold, and during the next 4 weeks, his health worsened. By April 3rd, Harrison was drifting in and out of consciousness. Then, on April 4th, 1841, after spending the previous 8 days in bed, William Henry Harrison succumbed to pneumonia at the age of 68, becoming the first president to die in office, an office he held for only 1 month. Tenskwatawa's prophecy had proven tellingly accurate. Harrison's was the first presidential funeral to be held in the White House, as the nation, stunned by his sudden death, deeply mourned the loss. The White House was draped in black crepe, and black mourning silk hung everywhere on buildings and homes. Those who knew of Tenskwatawa's curse could only ask whether this was indeed the very fulfillment of the presidential curse, which, after Harrison's death, would continue every 20 years, exactly as the Shawnee prophet predicted. So we see that this Shawnee prophet had predicted that Harrison would win the presidential election, but that he would actually die in office. And true to his prophecy and true to the curse, Harrison, the 9th president of the United States, became the very first president to actually die in office, just like the Shawnee holy man had predicted. But the Shawnee prophet, Tenskwatawa, actually made another part of his prophecy, right? He said that every great chief that was elected in 20-year cycles would meet the same fate as William Henry Harrison. So an individual may say that, oh, maybe it was a coincidence that the Shawnee prophet had said that Harrison would win and he would die in office, and he actually was the first U.S. president to die in office. Maybe that was a coincidence. But the Shawnee holy man also said that every president elected in 20-year cycles after that will also meet the same fate. So we have to ask ourselves, did that part of the prophecy ring true? Let's look into it. And I actually researched some of this information, and I'm telling you, I became a believer of this presidential curse. They go on to say, Abraham Lincoln, elected in 1860. Now remember, it goes in 20-year cycles. So Harrison was elected in 1840. So the next president 20 years later would be 1860, and it was none other than Abraham Lincoln. Now we all know how Abraham Lincoln died in office, but let's read it anyway. Abraham Lincoln, elected in 1860, was assassinated in 1865. Abraham Lincoln died in office. So if Abraham Lincoln made president in 1860 and died in office, that makes two presidents who fell victim to this presidential curse made by this Shawnee prophet. So in the next 20 years, it will be the president that gets elected in 1880, right? Elected in 1880, James Garfield was assassinated in 1881. So that makes the third president to fall victim to this curse, exactly how the Shawnee holy man said, right? So you have Harrison, you have Lincoln, and then you have Garfield. So let's see who was elected in the next 20-year cycle. William McKinley, elected in 1900, fell to an assassin's bullet in 1901. So true to the presidential curse, the next guy, William McKinley, died in office as well. That makes 4 presidents. 1 is an incident. 2 may be a coincidence. But 3 is a pattern. And 4, in my opinion, is proof of a curse. You got Harrison, who died like he said. Lincoln, who died like he said. Garfield, who died like he said. And McKinley, who died like he said. Warren G. Harding, elected in 1920, died in office in 1923. So that's 5. The next president elected in a 20-year cycle, he died in office exactly how the Shawnee holy man had predicted. How many times do you need to see this play out before you say, hey, it may be more to this curse than we originally thought, right? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, elected for a 3rd term in 1940, died in office in 1945, having survived one assassination attempt even before he was inaugurated in 1933 in an attempted military coup just 2 years later. So the next 20-year cycle was 1940. The president that was elected was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He died in office too, just like Watawa said. And I want y'all to look this up to see if these people actually died in office. I looked it up and they did, man. So you have William Harrison dying in office. Then 20 years later, you had Abraham Lincoln dying in office. 20 years later, you had James Garfield dying in office. 20 years later, you had William McKinley dying in office. 20 years later, you had Warren G. Harding dying in office. 20 years later, you had Franklin Delano Roosevelt dying in office. And let's see what happened after him. John F. Kennedy, I shouldn't have to read the rest of that. Y'all know what happened to Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, elected in 1960, was assassinated in 1963. So you have William Harrison, Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, Warren G. Harding, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and John F. Kennedy. 7 freaking presidents that died according to the presidential curse laid down by the Shawnee holy man, Watawa. That ain't no coincidence, man. You may not believe in a curse, but that ain't no coincidence, man. So let's see what happens. Let's keep reading, right? Ronald Reagan, elected in 1980. He would have been the next one up in 1980. That's the next 20 years. Ronald Reagan, elected in 1980, barely surviving an assassin's bullet in 1981, marking him at first glance the first president to finally break the infamous curse 140 years later. So you see Ronald Reagan being born in that 20-year cycle in 1980. He survived an assassination attempt in 81. So someone was gunning for his life, but he survived it. So now you have something that kind of seems like a final destination type of thing, right? A final destination type of thing. He's supposed to die, but he survived the assassin and he lived. But the 7 presidents previous to him, they all died. So it looks like maybe because Ronald Reagan survived the assassin's bullet, right? Survived the assassin's bullet, that maybe it was some kind of glitch in the curse, glitch in the matrix. And maybe because he survived his assassination attempt, maybe he possibly broke the curse, right? Let's keep going. Could it be argued, though, that Ronald Reagan began suffering from the effects of incurable Alzheimer's disease during his term in office and actually began to die? And finally, what will be the fate? This book was wrote during George Bush's presidency. And finally, what will be the fate of George W. Bush elected in 2000? So George Bush would have been elected in that 20-year cycle as well, with respect to the curse of Tiskawatawa. According to Press Secretary Ari Fletcher, who later seemed to retract the statement, George W. Bush in September 2001 narrowly escaped the double assassination attempt when a commercial jetliner hijacked by Middle Eastern terrorists became a cruise missile aimed first at the White House and then at the Pentagon, where it ultimately crashed. While President Bush was en route from Florida to New York, supposedly another hijacked plane was trying to collide with Air Force One. So the president's plane flew first to Louisiana and then to North Dakota, where, in secure communication with the White House Situation Room, President Bush and Vice President Cheney planned strategy on what was a day of tragedy for the United States. So we see Bush didn't die in office. We all know that. Bush still alive right now today. But he was elected in 2000. And in 2001, we all know about September 11th, 2001. There was an assassination attempt that was part of this grand 9/11 scheme, where planes were aimed at the White House and purportedly planes were aimed at Air Force One. But much like his, not his predecessor, but in the 20-year cycle, his predecessor, Ronald Reagan, had narrowly dodged an assassination attempt. But you can see the final destination curse type vibe on his bumper. But he survived, right? But before that, like I'm telling y'all, listen, bro. Listen. The Shawnee holy man made this prediction and planned this curse, and true to the word of the curse, you had, again, William Henry Harrison, right? You had James Garfield, William McKinley, Warren G. Harding, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy. And then you had an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan, and you had an assassination attempt on George W. Bush. So, are curses real? This thing played out for 140 years, just like that man said. Is that a 140-year coincidence? Come on, man. Don't be dense. Please, don't be dense. Open your mind, man. Open your mind. Look at the facts. Look at the facts, man. Did you know that the first president to die in office died because of a curse? Did you know that Abraham Lincoln's assassination can be indirectly tied to a curse? Did you know that John F. Kennedy's assassination can be tied to a curse? The assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan can be tied to a curse? Did you know that these presidents that died in office, Garfield, Harding, McKinley, Roosevelt, do you know that them people dying in office can be tied to a curse? These assassinations of presidents can be tied to a curse? That's crazy, man. That's wild. And remember, y'all ain't never heard this. You ain't never heard this. You heard it here first on The Real Bookworm. You heard it here first from The Real Bookworm. I want y'all to Google this. Google it. Look up them presidents that I just named. See if they all didn't die in office. And see if they all wasn't elected in this 20-year cycle. Right? I already looked it up. I already know what you're going to find. I already know what you're going to find. So is the presidential curse real? And if it is, I want y'all to think about this. The next 20-year cycle election is the election of 2020. Right? It's 2020 right now. It's coming up. It's coming up. Right? And it's probably going to be Donald Trump against Joe Biden. Keep y'all look, man, whoever wins, I want y'all to keep y'all eyes on the prize. it is a very good chance that either they will die in office, they will be assassinated in office, or there will be some type of assassination attempt made on them while they are in office, because this thing has been playing out. It played out where they actually died in office for 140 years, but these attempts on their lives has been playing out ever since Tenskwatawa made the prophecy and placed this curse on to the seat of the American presidency. So keep y'all eyes on this 2020 election. Remember, you heard it here first with the real bookworm. They are either going to, according to this curse, they're going to die in office by natural causes. They are going to be assassinated, or there will at the very least be some type of assassination attempt on their lives. Or, you know, it's possible because Ronald Reagan and George Bush didn't die. Maybe the curse was broken, or maybe it's, you know, it's damn near 200 years after the fact. So maybe the curse has lost its vigor, but the curse was definitely there. I believe in it from what I read. Let me know what you guys think. Do y'all believe in this presidential curse? If you don't, Google it and tell me why is it that this guy said this and then it played out exactly like that guy said. The haunting of the president. Now, it's a whole lot more stuff that I want to go into in this book. We're talking about seances in the White House. Did you know that certain presidents held seances in the White House? Seances. You're supposed to be a Christian nation. They held seances in the White House. Haunted, the ghost in the White House. The haunting of the president. We're going to go into some hauntings. We're going to go into some ghost stories. We're going to go into some possessions. We're going to go into some more curses. Right, we're gonna go into some more prophecies. Right, I'm gonna be, maybe not on my next video, but I'm gonna be dibbling and dabbling in this. You know, I just be jumping from book to book. I just be trying to wet your palate and give y'all a whole lot of, you know, information. But I'm gonna be dipping into some of this paranormal stuff because people want to act like this stuff ain't a possibility and this stuff ain't real and some of this stuff ain't an actuality. I want to hear what you say about this curse. I want to hear what you say about this curse, and I want to keep my eyes on this 2020 election. I want to see what happened with this president, this next president that's elected in this 20-year cycle. I want to see if they die in office. I want to see if they get assassinated, right? And I want to see if there's an assassination attempt on their life. And if that happens, just know you heard it here first with the real bookworm, but you originally heard it first with this Shawnee holy man, Tenskwatawa. Again, before I log off, I want to pay some bills, have a little commercial. Listen, go to Amazon. I'm the author of 2 books. If you're unfamiliar with me and it's the first time you're watching my videos, I'm the author of 2 books. Support what I got going on. Fire novels. Everyone that buys my novels and reads them, they love them, right? Everyone that reads them and orders them and reads them, they love them. I have 1 novel out, Suicide Note, right? I have 1 novel out, Thicker Than Water. What I want y'all to do, listen to me. When you turn off this video, I want you to go to Amazon.com, right? I want you to type in Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. Add this to your cart. Then I want you to go to Thicker Than Water by Matthew Daniels. Add this to your cart and order these 2 books so you can have something good to read while you're on this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic quarantine. Go ahead and order those books and read them. Now, for you individuals who don't like to read paperback novels, what I want you to do is go to Amazon.com, type in the exact same thing, Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels, Thicker Than Water by Matthew Daniels, and I have 2 types of books you can buy. The paperback, this one, or you can order the ebook version. The ebook version is only $2.99, $3. Go ahead and order that, download that, read it at your leisure. Or you can go to my Facebook page, Everything Matthew Daniels. Go to my Facebook page, Everything Matthew Daniels. Go to the shop section and order your copy of the book. Go to my website, www.therealbookworm.com. www.therealbookworm.com, and you can order the book from there. Order it from my website, order it from my Facebook page, or order it on Amazon if you feel more comfortable using Amazon. You can get the paperback version, right? Or you can get the ebook version. Fire. 371 pages. A dynamic novel. You got romance. You got mystery. You got action. You got murder. Right? You got all of that. All of that. You got comedy. All of that rolled up in one. Thicker Than Water. over 400 pages of fire. You got romance. You got sex scenes. Yeah, I write some of the best sex scenes in the business. I'm not gonna front. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just telling you what it is, right? I write some of the best action scenes in the business, and I'm the king of plot twists. You won't know what's going to happen until I tell you what's going to happen. You know, go get that book Thicker Than Water. Go get that book Suicide Note. Go ahead and support what I got going on. All right, support the real bookworm. Support your brother Matthew Daniels. The haunting of the presidents, the presidential curse that you knew nothing about. You heard it here first. This your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Pooh, aka the chosen few, aka the real bookworm. I'm not a bookworm. I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I set the standard for what a bookworm is. I set the standard for what a bookworm is. Not a bookworm. I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. Please respect it. And as always, world, may your name live on forever, and may your memory never die. Hotel, peace, the real bookworm out.